is because of that gang, and I will leave the word straight to Dave, and welcome.
Thank you. Round of applause. I don't know. Yeah, hello everybody, welcome. This is going to be quite a hot room, I can tell you. Hot in terms of temperature and debate. You know. Really looking forward to the next few days, chatting about all things related to Nordic whiskies. There's some familiar faces here, some gold badge winners who've been to every single one of these. But just to give you a quick explanation of what's going to be happening over the next couple of days, we're going to have various presentations. All the presenters will give their presentation. There won't be any questions after each one. Once the final one has spoken, the floor is open. I'll ask some stuff, but really the way that this works is you get involved and ask the questions. And then you'll find the barriers between the speaker and the audience and the delegates breaks down completely, as does everything else. So yeah, in other words, participation is really important. Peter, I hope you're ready to speak for 3 hours. No?
I'm ready.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. So, without any more ado, I'd like to introduce the team, because it's not just me. Our eminence Gries over there. He is Groot, Jan Groot, whose idea this madness was in the first place, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was. Zoe, who in a moment of weakness, just after having a baby, decided to join us. True?
Yes, true.
And of course, everybody knows Ingvar, without whom nobody would have got on the bus. So there we are. So from all of us, thank you so much for coming along. We're going to be great. It's going to be a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we get started with the presentations, we've done something remarkable here. We've suddenly become grown up. We've got sponsors. And we've also lost power. There we are. It'll come up in a minute. Please tell me it's going to come up in a minute. There we go. So just a very quick word from our sponsors. We'll just go in the order that it is. Dave from Crisp, are you here?
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Just a word.
Through that thing.
Squeaky thing. I'm not sure how it works, but anyway, just a word from a sponsor. I'm Dr. David Griggs. I'm Technical Director at Chris Malt. It's a great privilege for us to sponsor this, or be one of the sponsors of this forum. We've been making malt for over 150 years. We make a lot of distilling malt. We were making a lot of peated distilling malt until we burnt our peat kiln down. That's going to be working again come July time. So I'm not here to sell malt. I'm here to talk about malt to anybody that wants to talk about it. When it's produced, it's very good. You like it, I know. So hopefully it'll be just as good when it'll be good again once. Non-existent this year. Next year it'll be fine. So yes, hopefully with that. But here to talk about malt if anybody wants to. I was told I can't do an hour's presentation, but so that's probably me done. So.
Thank you, Dave. Abby, where are we?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abby. I'm the Technical Director at IDEA, Integro Design Engineering Associates. We work with a lot of distillery clients to design their processes. Now, before all of you jump and think that we are the expert, no, we are not. We just bring your vision on paper, or more like on computer, and execute. So yeah, we've worked with quite a lot of distilleries, and it's been a privilege to sponsor today. So yeah, any design needs, you know where to find me. It's a small room.
Finally, Maya. I'm scared to throw this. We'll just pass it.
Just throw it away.
Hello, my name is Maya. I'm representing Bishop's Arms, which is a 40 pubs in Sweden, and which is a part of Elite Hotel where you're all staying at. So it's quite a big company. And our interest is in whiskies from restaurant perspective. And this forum, I'm hoping for some idea from all of you and inspiration, and looking forward to it. And other days when I'm not sitting here, I'm pub manager for one of those pubs. Thank you very much.
Don. I saw you tried to pocket it. I know. I've got my eye on that table, and especially that side of that table, okay? I know you all. Okay, so everybody, we can get started. The first session is an extraordinary achievement. We've managed to get everybody from the monopolies to come and talk and share their vision for what's going to be happening to Nordic whisky. So it's a great honour to have you all here and, you know, willing to not only present but answer questions as well. So without any more ado, we're going to start off here in Sweden. So we have Linda and David.
Well, I'll start off by introducing myself. I'm David Benj. I am the purchaser for spirits at Systembolaget. I also purchase ciders and RTDs, fruit wines, flavored wines, and other sparkling products. And I've been doing so since 2008. And I've been working at Systembolaget since 1999. So, yeah. And I'll leave to my colleague.
Yes.
Just present herself.
My name is Linda Johansson and I work also at with sustainability at Systembolaget, and I've only been working there actually for 2 years, which I've learned is quite a short period of time because most of my colleagues have worked there for much longer. And my passion really for this industry is really sustainability. I don't have the, you know, I've learned in the drinks business that everyone is like, they're so passionate into like a particular type of drink and so on. So that's not my expertise, but sustainability I'm very passionate about. And since it's all based on agriculture raw materials, I think we have some really important discussions to have. Yeah.
Should we introduce our colleague too? We brought with us. Oh, sorry. Yeah. We brought with us our category manager for spirits and beers at Systembolaget, Emily Westrup. Yeah, she's emotional support. So. Yeah. Should we start?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you are all well aware of Systembolaget, but we just felt that for like 2 minutes we're going to run through a couple of slides here just to kind of set the basic scene. So you can, now maybe I'm blocking the view for some people. I don't really know where to stand, but yeah. If someone can't see, you have to tell me. I mean, the starting point of Systembolaget is actually sustainability. So I think that's something it's good to go back to. I mean, Systembolaget exists in Sweden because of the political will to reduce the harmful impact of alcohol. And I think this is a quite nice example in the picture here of the box, you know, as at the cash point, which is also visible when you shop online, that do you really need everything? Have you changed your mind? Is there something that you might want to return, which is quite different for when you shop in other places. So I think that's a nice example of sort of the basic sustainability thought of Systembolaget. Okay. Yeah, we'll go through quite quickly. And of course, what does it mean to be a monopoly? You are probably also aware of these kind of leading principles that we work under in terms of equal treatment, transparency, that we have the blind testings and also that only Swedish companies are suppliers. So, I mean, this sets the scene for us, how we can work and how you also can interact with us and how our customer meets us. And sort of the last slide here in terms of very quickly introducing Systembolaget. I like this slide a lot personally because I like this kind of graphs and very clear illustrations. What we want to show here is just to kind of refresh the memory that we have about 3,500 products in our set range. And those 3,500 products is about 95% of our selling. So that, of course, also guides our work quite a lot, especially when it comes to sustainability. We want to look at where we have the largest impacts, where the largest risks are. So, of course, we put a lot of efforts into this. But having that said, of course, our standard purchasing agreements and so on applies on all different ranges. So we do work with all ranges. But the ordering range here, I mean, 18,500 products, I think that's kind of the average. And that stands for about 2% of the sales. Yeah?
And there's some.
You want to say something more?
there's some nice numbers for you to look at if you want. And I think just thinking about how many products are in these different assortments gives you an idea how many sales we handle every year, but with different kind of products. But I'm going to talk a bit about the sales and break it down a bit. So this is last year's sales. We sold 558 million liters of alcoholic beverage. That's 46 billion Swedish crowns in value. If we break them down into the categories, you'll see that spirits is 5% in volume, but it's almost 22%, almost 21% here in value. And if we break that down even further, 8% of that value is actually whiskey. So it has a large proportion within that spirit sales. If we break it into subcategories, the category of spirits, you'll see this is a nice picture because it illustrates the development over time. And at that point in time, between 2008 and 2009, that's when Sweden became a whiskey country. That's when the volumes of whiskey actually superseded vodka and neutral grain spirits. So that's when we actually were a proper whiskey country. So this is a quote that I actually gave to my friends. I've tried to translate it into, or my colleagues translate it as good as I can, but this is how I sell the subcategory of whiskey internally. Sweden is a mature spirits market with a larger consumer interest for matured spirits. Sales largely uninfluenced by marketing activities make us a unique and sought-after test market. And I can say after 15 years of being a purchaser at Systembolaget, meeting with the largest producers and distributors of spirits in the world, that this is true. It is absolutely true. Sweden has had access to products that have not been seen in other markets before. And it is a very special market for that reason. Spirits has a very high, what we call NKI, which is a satisfied consumer index or customer index. Just to give a few other little ideas of what's trending and what's not trending in the long term. Yeah? And save questions for this later if you want.
We've all got pants.
Yeah. So I'm going to break whiskey down a bit further. And we do focus a lot on whiskey for a reason. As I pointed out, Sweden is a whiskey country. So as you can see, like 10 out of 26 launches that we do in our fixed assortment every year is focused on the whiskey category. And that's not just malt whiskey, but all the different kinds of whiskies. And it's very important for us to diversify within these segments, to create a lot of good offerings for the consumers, wide range and depth, to make it an interesting assortment for the consumers. There are some other things that we can do when we diversify. This you all know as producers, we try to have a wide range of prices, age statements or non-age statements, flavor profiles, unpeated, peated, different finishes, and that's to create the depth within this segment, or this segment. There are differences within the whiskey subcategory of whiskey. Some segments are more alike. I would say that Scotch malt whiskey has more similarities with Swedish malt whiskies. We need a lot of renewal, and we need new products all the time. Whereas other segments, as Canadian whiskey, for example, is much more difficult to rejuvenate, to create offerings that are inspiring for younger, new consumers, because it's an older category. It's more of a volume category. And also, any launches here takes much longer time to establish. So it's a bit different. And then you have another a key important thing to know is American whiskey and Irish whiskey are standout segments when it comes to the on-trade in Sweden. And that has an importance when it comes to the possibilities in our assortment too, because it is an active sales channel, and that's where you create a lot of buzz around your products. And we can see that. The Irish and the American whiskey works on the on-trade, and it grows at Systembolaget. So. And what do we do then to maintain this? Well, our main focus is to secure availability on the shelves. We have a high launch frequency, especially for malt whiskies. We focus on smaller and environmentally friendly packaging, especially in the volume segments. And we try to secure offerings from other in-demand origins. Example given, Japan. Yeah. And why should we focus on why should Nordic whiskey care about sustainability? Because it is an expectation from our consumers, and it is an expectation from our owners to pursue sustainability at Systembolaget. And also, I believe firmly, after all these years, that it's viable, or it's compatible to be sustainable, but also commercially viable. And if we look at a segment like other malt whiskies, where Sweden is heavily represented, but also Finland, and we've had other products from Norway and Denmark, I would say that there is a problem with our offerings becoming too homogeneous. They're too much alike. And they are at a higher price point. It is difficult to make new consumers come into this segment because of that higher entry-level price point. But if you're going to have a premium price point, I think you have to align with people who make active choices, especially the younger consumers. And they will expect that their products that they're paying quite a lot for are sustainable and viable for the future.
Shall I continue on that? Actually, you can go back briefly to the previous slide, because, I mean, speaking of customers, we, of course, listen a lot to what our customers are looking for. And surveys say that 8 out of 10 customers, they would want to have guidance in terms of choosing more sustainable products, but only 2 out of 10 do, because it's too difficult. As a regular customer, regardless of if you're buying a new car or a TV or whiskey, you don't know exactly what to look for. So in this picture, we have, it's our new customer guidance that we have introduced from 1st of June. Actually, we started already last year, but the graphic was different, and based on feedback that we got to make it even more clear, it's now looking like this. So it talks about that it has to be environmentally certified for growing and production. It's also about social responsibility, so we cover human rights, and then also packaging, because that's such a big part of the climate impact. And that's also what we're going to deep dive into a little bit more right now, and also touch upon what's specific then for the whiskey category. And we have to start with the traceability, because that's really the starting point. If we don't know where the raw material comes from, and we don't know where their production takes place, we don't know what the impact this product has. And for the whiskey and spirits category, the main challenge here is really raw material, the agricultural crops. Where do they come from? We, of course, understand the nature of the business, that it's traded in bulk. It's a big, very mechanic agriculture practices and so on. So it's quite easy to then think that, well, there are probably no human rights risks if it's a very mechanized, highly technology agriculture system. But we know that is the case. So when it comes to traceability, whiskey and spirits category really have to start putting demands on your raw material suppliers. At Systembolaget, we already have higher demands on wine, for example, when it comes to traceability. And that's something that we are looking to increase the demands for all categories across our range. So this is something that is going to come more and more, because this is really the starting point. We don't know otherwise. How can you be sure what kind of impact your final product has if you don't know the starting point of the raw material? And it's an agricultural crop. I mean, to be able to grow, to be able to have water for your production, you need to know the impact that you have throughout the whole chain. And another challenge also that we see in relation to spirits and whiskey is also when it comes to certifications. Because certifications is one way that we see as a good route to be able to know these things. It's usually a third party that goes out and verifies that there are no human rights violations, for example. How big is the water consumption? What are the impacts of this particular raw material and production? But unfortunately, in the spirits and whiskey category, we don't see a lot of certifications. In wine, we are aware of more than 75 certifications globally, but it doesn't look like that in your category. I mean, it's basically organic that we see as a certification. And at Systembolaget, we have had a project actually going on for this whole year together with our suppliers to try to seek out, have we missed certifications? Maybe there are certifications out there that we are not aware of. But unfortunately, we came back with not a lot of new suggestions. And here it's something that we as a retailer, we cannot really create a certification. That needs to come from the industry itself. But we can clearly state that this is something that we want. There is the demand for this. There's a need for this. But everyone in the supply chain here really have to see what is their role and responsibility. So this is something that we really want to underline, that traceability and certifications as a route of or as a way of addressing the challenges in the supply chain is something that we really look for. Yep. Climate, of course, is another big aspect. We know that when we have looked at, the traceability, we have been working with this for a long time in Systembolaget. We see that as a company, we have a big climate impact. And again, emphasizing the fact that all raw materials come from agriculture. We know that climate, together with biodiversity and water consumption, is crucial here. So to the right, you can see where Systembolaget's emissions come from. It's growing, its production, and its packaging. So that's kind of also guiding where we are mostly focusing and working on. And that leads us then over to packaging, where we wanted to underline a couple of key points here. When it comes to packaging, we see that the most climate impact from packaging comes from single-use glass bottles. No news to anyone, hopefully. So, of course, we do a lot of different activities, but one activity here that we wanted to highlight was the maximum weights that we have imposed that will come into effect from the 1st of March 2024. So, for example, for a 700 ml bottle, the maximum weight to be allowed to be sold is 750 grams. The goal for a 700 ml bottle is 400 grams. That's the current definition of a lightweight bottle. So basically, we see a need to accelerate this journey towards lightweight bottles. We see a lot of positive changes happening in the industry, both with lightweighting glass bottles and also what we will talk about a little bit more, other types of packaging. But we don't have time to wait, so we felt a need to actually impose a hard rule here on maximum weight, and also then sort of create more of a equal playing field, because I mean this rule will apply to all our ranges and all products. There are sort of an exception to it about volume, because of course we want to address where we have the most impact. But if there's questions on this topic, I can explain that a bit more later. So basically the long-term goal that we have is that for everything that needs to be sold or should be sold in a single-use glass bottle should be on lightweight. We have not decided the year yet. It's something that we are looking at. But that's very clearly for us that long-term we want to have everything on glass should be on a lightweight bottle. And this first maximum weight is kind of the first milestone to reach that goal. And there's also a lot of discussions going on about this internationally. We collaborate and discuss a lot with other major retailers because we often get feedback that, companies that sell on multiple markets don't want to have different limits, don't want to have different weight limits and so on. So here we also look at what others are doing so that we can align and therefore help the industry to move in the same direction. So moving on to packaging with lower climate impact.
I could also just add that if we would like to see a standard within the business, and we've said that for years when it comes to glass, if there was a standard for how much energy is being used when you create glass, or a standard for how much reusable glass is in the glass, or how much is, we would see that as a good thing, especially if it's third-party certified. Other things that we were talking about having a diverse assortment. Glass is having all your eggs in one basket. And in the volume segments of whiskey, we do already have a few whiskies on PET. PET is, I know, internationally not recognized as an environmentally friendly packaging. In Sweden, if it's up to the standards of the recycling companies, it is very much so an environmentally friendly choice. The weight that we take away from transportation and logistics and distribution is massive. So we see that as a very viable way to go for the future with PET. I also would like to say that if you can achieve it, packaging, paper-based and pouch, this would be of interest for us, massive interest. I'm just looking for people to sort of present it to us so we can take it into account. We open up our tenders for other packaging types, always. And the reuse system with deposit, I think, is probably a bit more in the future, but it's something that we would really like to see also on spirits, because that has the lowest impact on climate. Point of being resealable. Any packaging that is new and not in glass, we just want to make a point of the packaging needs to be resealable, because we don't want to change consumer behaviors. We want to change their packaging, not their drinking behaviors. And a point, secondary packaging, I just wrote down, no thank you. I never ask for it. I'm always given it anyway, so you don't need to push it. We don't need it. You probably say that gifting is a very big part of the sales. It's not as big as you think, and it's not as important as you would think. I have more issues with getting the product when it's purchased, getting it onto the market properly, because it's being stopped because of issues with the secondary packaging than anything else. So it's a hindrance, I would say. So that's just my point. Also, we want to, me and Emily thought it's important for us to actually say something about our assortments, and it's how you should view our assortments, more or less. We put a dart arrow here, and how to sort of to pinpoint what you're doing. If you view our assortments as different sales channels, it's a lot easier to create strategical and more sort of focused ideas and ways to reach the market, ways to reach consumers, because our different assortments are actually different consumer behaviors. I've just put down some points. This presentation will be available via Dave. So I put down just a few facts about these different assortments. And I think these facts can actually give you some guidance on what kind of consumer that you can reach through these different assortments. I say this has a very large importance, because some of you in this room who've been are a bit more experienced with working against Systembolaget know how to use these assortments already. And the key is to actually use these consumer behaviors and pinpoint what kind of product are we developing? What kind of consumer do we want to reach? And you can do that through these different assortments in different ways. Everything is not solved by our fixed assortment. Yeah, and so it's just a last summary. And these are the points we wanted you to take with you from us. Traceability, certifications, climate, water use and biodiversity having more importance, packaging, and using our different assortments to reach the customers that you want to reach on our market.
Thank you. Thanks, thank you. Well, thank you very much indeed for that. Really fascinating. I was scribbling away. Hope everybody else was scribbling away. There was some fascinating points in here. I'm going to be calling up Idar now, if I can just find you. Yeah. It's coming. Talk amongst yourselves. So you'll get used to this. I was getting really good at this earlier on. You know?
Maybe untick navigator. Shall we play some music, Dave?
Enough from you.
I brought it back,
You tell what music style you like.
There we go. There we go. You'll have to do it this way. Is that all right? You good? Get up.
Thank you, thank you.
Nice one.
Can't you just start it?
Yeah. Oh, just these buttons.
Oh, yeah, with all my... Just a second. Can't you just...
No.
No, you can't start it.
Not on the slideshow, no? The slide.
You just...
Yeah,
just click
when you have the fantastic thing called the PC, you can just press start and it will start.
it has effectively started.
So,
I can see it.
no problem at all. No problem at all. First of all, my name is Ida Sørensen. I'm the product manager for spirits in the Vinmonopolet. I have to say thank you to Sweden because we are in a collaboration, all three of us, when it comes to environmental issues. And he has said, you have said almost everything I was going to say. So my presentation will be a little bit shorter. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will point out some differences, but otherwise, a lot of the stuff I was going to say about that issue is already said, and that is because we have, as I said, a collaboration. We agree on a lot of different stuff, and a lot of the things we do together because we get a greater impact by working together than working individually. So, no, that didn't work. That one, yes, thank you. Oh, that's fantastic. Why the wine monopoly? It's the same as in Sweden. We are the main industry instrument for ensuring. The coffee in Sweden is very strong. Instrument in ensuring the responsibility sales of alcohol. What we do, we check age, we check if you're drunk, we ask if you do you need all this and so on, and we are very good at finding the different things you need to drink to your food. Also spirits. And this works. I have a slide here that shows the monopoly countries, how much alcohol that are consumed compared to other countries. And the reason why these other countries are before Finland is that's the natural order of countries on consumption of alcohol. So you see, we are very proud of being here in the bottom. And these are our sales. We are probably the smallest monopoly market in Norway because we have less people than all the other countries. But you don't have a monopoly, do you?
Yes, we
You do? Okay, sorry. Why was you blacked out in my presentation then? My people don't know what they're doing. So, in short, these are our total sales. We sell 970 million liters of alcohol. You see, during the pandemic, it was a lot more. But if you take the straight line from 2019 until 2022, you'll see the actual increase in sales. The pandemic has changed a lot how people consume things. We see that we are selling more expensive stuff and a little bit less. So even if we are having a bigger revenue of money, we sell less products. So people are actually buying more expensive stuff. People are using restaurants runs a little bit less. Not much less, but a little bit less, and instead using money on expensive wine and alcohol at home. We don't know if this trend will continue, and 2023 is a very, very interesting year, because this is the first year we'll actually see the consumer trends after the pandemic. So we believe we are around here, but we're not quite sure. So everything we say about numbers all the time is approximately, because we know the numbers at the minute, but we don't know how they will be next year. The one monopoly system, how we purchase things. Over here, this is me, a couple of years younger with hair, no beard. What we do, we look for actual demand and what we will believe will be the next demand. So actual demand, we look at all our numbers. What are we selling? Do we have enough of the product we're selling? Do we need something more of something? When we have done that, we look at trends. We buy reports, we make our own reports, and we are shown reports by international companies for the trends the next years. And then we travel all over the world, even to Sweden, Denmark, and a lot in Norway, to see what's made, how you're making things. And the reason why we travel a lot is because I'm sadly to say you guys that are small producers are not good enough to tell us what you actually are doing. And that makes my job very much harder. So if you're ever entering the Norwegian market, tell your importer, or if you're already in the market, tell them to tell us what you're doing. And you can tell us whatever you like, because if I tell anybody else what you told me, I get fired. I have a clause, I can't tell anybody anything. And that's because we need to know what you have in the pipeline so we can maybe use this to make tenders for the future. So this is me, happily drinking and spitting, traveling around the world, looking at a lot of Excel sheets and trying to make a tender. I'll show you a tender afterwards, but these have the specifications. And then we receive samples that goes to a sensory testing panel. And because of something that happened some years ago, I'm separated from the sensory panel. So I'm just doing this. Then we have a ISO certified sensory panel that tastes the product according to tender. So if we are looking for something cheap, green, that you're supposed to drink really fast, they will taste for that. And if you're looking for a really fantastic good whiskey, they will taste for that. So it's not always the best product that wins, but the product we are asking for. So they're tasting according to tender. And then when I get the papers back, I get the price, what it costs. Oh, I'm touching the screen. I was told not to touch it. No, don't touch the screen. It's a feeling screen. The quality, the SPI, as we call the sensory panel, and the deliverability, tillgänglighet på norsk. So these three criteria we use to pick a product that we're going to launch. So I get the results from all these back, and I use these things to find the product that we are buying. So I can't just pick a product because I like it and say this is what we're going to launch. It has to be a sum of all this. So when you send us our first shipment, we take whatever you send us here as a test and compare it to what you send us. And we have a lot of rules like this. And it's mainly not because of you guys, but because of the wine people. They have cheated a lot. So all these really, really strict things like tasting, what we get is because of some countries that send wine that they wasn't supposed to send, and so on and so on. So that's why we do this. If you win a listing in our assortment, the basic assortment, you get 1 year basic range listing. And sometimes as well we buy one lots as well as the basic listing. And these are for two reasons. It's because we would for a certain period have a broader selection of the products we are launching, and we get more attention from the media. And it's only two ways to express your feelings about your product in Norway, and that is through the media or the on-trade. As my Swedish colleague said, on-trade is really, really important in Norway to build your brand and actually survive in our system. So, this is a specification. This is a specification I made for Denmark, Sweden, and Finland. We had another one just for Norway. That's why Norway is not in this one. So this is mainly how it's made, and you probably will see this if you get into the Norwegian market or are there already. You will have an importer or a distributor in Norway that will send you this and say, do you have a product that fits this? So this is for single malt whiskey, non-chilled filter, no coloring, and it has to have a distinct aroma of smoke. That's all we said. And it has to be below the price of 700. And that refers to as 70 CL bottles. But here it says max 70 CL. So that means you can deliver 35, 035, 050, and so on. I almost forgot this. We have some happy people here in the room. 4 years in a row, we have an open specification for Norwegian whiskey. Whichever whiskey it was, just as long as it was produced in Norway. And November 2023, we're going to launch the first Norwegian single malt whiskey in our basic assortment. Myken. There you are. There. And this is not my doing, except from writing this. It's because they make fantastic whiskey and they have enough whiskey available to actually be in our basic assortment. So this is our ranking system. The reason why I'm showing you this is very, very, very boring, but it's one of the most important things for you to see how you're selling. This is our ranking system for single malt whiskey, not single malt, malt whiskey and blended malt from all over the world, except from Scotland. This is one of 3 just from Scotland. So what you see here, the one in black, that's how many listings we have in our shops. The ones in green are things that are launched, that have still the 1 year in our system, that might get a place. And we have, all in all, 16 different for single malts in Norway from Scotland. So this is a new one. And the reason why we made this one is because we see an interest for Nordic whiskey. We don't have huge sales yet. We have bought a lot of one-off. We have had a lot of it in our basic assortment, specialty assortment, and in our order assortment. The difference from our order assortment from the Swedish one is that we have almost 33,000 products in our order assortment, and that makes it even harder to get into the basic assortment through the ordering. So what you see here, if one of these are going to stay in our permanent listings, it has to sell more than the one on top, and this is how much it's selling. It's not much, but we're trying to keep this alive just because it's something else than the Scottish selection. Or both of them has to sell so much that we can make 2, or 3, or 4, or 5. This is a dynamic thing that are developing according to actual sales. So when people are saying that we need to list a lot of more Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, whatever whiskies, we can't until the consumer starts buying a lot of it. Everything is consumer-based. And that's why on-trade is so important in Norway, to show the consumer that you make fantastic whiskey so that they will buy it in the bar, taste it, say this is fantastic, and then go into the wine monopoly and buy it afterwards. So we can get more than just one listing on all the single malts from all over the world. It's kind of sad that we only have one. Really, really sad. Oh, there we go. This is my best slide ever. It's very intuitive and beautiful, and you can see why. It's just sales. Norway is not like Sweden, that we are a whiskey country. We used to be a cognac country. We, since 2010, has lost annual volumes 1.3 million liters of cognac. We used to sell over 2 million liters. Now we're selling less than 1 million. So we're losing almost 100,000 liters of volume every year on cognac. It's disappearing. And the reason for this is that they have no new recruitment. No new consumers are drinking it. The old consumer is dying. And this is not a joke, it's quite true. I even had 2 cognac producers in my office telling me, what can we do? Our consumer is dying. I can't do anything, you have to do it. I'm sorry, you have to do it. So to not get into the same trap as cognac, you have to do something. You have to talk to the younger clientele as well, not just talk to the older bastards like me. You have to talk to younger people as well, as they were talking about earlier. So we are now selling all in all in whiskey about 1,700,000 liters of whiskey up here. This is it's blended, it's grain, that kind of whiskey. This is single whiskey from all over the world, and we're only selling in 2002 263,000 liters. So it's not much, but it's growing. We're selling more and more. All the volume that are disappearing from cognac hasn't gone someplace just to rum or whiskies or aquavit. It has divided all over. So people are more diverse drinkers now than they used to be, and they are not only drinking one thing. So the job is to try to steer them into Nordic whiskies, so you have a lot to do. This is just how all the different countries are selling. You see Scotland is on top. And that, I believe, is because they are the strongest all over the world, and still are. And you have to show yourself to get up to these numbers. It will take a long time, but I hope that in some years we will look at Scottish whiskey and singles from the rest of the world in the same way. Yes, what have I made here? Yeah, it's just different numbers. Another thing that's quite important about this is all the way down here. Now that I see that this screen is so far down, I'm really regretting putting it on the bottom. But the average price of a bottle of whiskey, no matter which kind of whiskey, is 610 Norwegian kroner for a liter. It's very low. So that means that those 1.4 million liters is mainly this down here. So we have to convince them that they should buy this instead. Or not we, you have to. I'm putting a lot of responsibility on you, but I'm not allowed to do anything, so it's all up to you. Now we get into the part where you already said the most of the things. Ethical trade. We are now working closely with Systembolaget on ethical trade. We are influencing wine manufacturers and farmers everywhere and trying to get them to look into the ethical part of their trade. And we are now starting to look more and more at home as well. Because we have been traveling all over telling people that you have to pay people the right amount of money, you have to treat them well, they have to drink, they have to have shade, everything. And 2 years ago we had a big case in Norway where we saw one of the biggest farmers in Norway contracting labor from outside Norway that had really bad paid, worked too much, everything was wrong about it. The result of this was that his sales dropped enormously, and some of his business went bankrupt last year because of this. So we are not just looking into the international part of the produce. We are also looking now closer to home to see what's actually happening. And you all buy from farmers, and we know it's really, really hard to get traceability on the grains, but we're starting to get there on sugar. So we should be able to do the same thing with grains. It's a long way to go still on sugar, but we are getting there. Nordic Partnership for Greater Influence, yay. All they said. Environmentally. I'm going to say a little bit about the lightweight bottle. We have met some problems. We have been talking to Sweden and Finland for a couple of years now to get the 400 gram bottle. According to the Norwegian Consumer Forbrukerrådet, Tilsynet, we are not allowed to differentiate between different products. So we have to treat all the products alike. That means that we will never have a lightweight bottle on champagne, for instance, because we have to have a linear solution towards lightweight. And what they have told us to do is use the same linear system that the Nordic Swan eco-labeling system use. And for the glass bottle of wine, that's 420 grams. That means that for a 070 spirit bottle, it will be 392 grams per liter. I know that's for most of you very, very hard to be able to do, but this is what we have to work for. The positive thing is that we have seen some of the really large producers of spirits, like Edrington, Diageo, Anora, has now bottles that weighs 370 grams. What we hope is that now that they have started to order these bottles in big volumes, the glass producers will also start making these bottles available as a standard. That's what we are hoping. And it is in the glass producers' interest to use this as a standard, because sand with the right properties to make glass is becoming a scarce produce. It's actually a problem that has started now that we don't have enough sand anymore. So they should make lighter bottle so they can make more bottles, and it's better for the environment. Also, we have in all our tenders now for spirits, all products that cost in our stores less than 70 euros have to be without outer packaging, secondary packaging. No outer packaging on new listings. And what we also says is that these products, if they come from abroad, they have to leave the country of origin without the outer packaging. Because what happened when we started this was that they sent all these products to Norway, and then we got a mountain in Norway of boxes, because they just took off the boxes in Norway and put it into our shelves. So this is one of the things we're doing to influence the packaging. We have also goals to reduce the the number of kilograms of carbon dioxide for each bottle, and that's the products of the bottle and the shipping of the bottle into our system. When we started this registration and checking bottles in 2018, we was a little bit over 1,600 grams, not kilograms, grams of CO2 per bottle, and our goal in 2013 is 760. This has now been going on for 4 years, and we have gotten nowhere. It's not decreasing at all, because we are launching a lot of new products, but we are mostly selling a lot of wine, cheap wine. And these products are not in lightweight bottles. So we are looking at ways now to how we can go into our system and force these bottles into lightweight packaging. But we don't know how yet, because we have many laws, many regulations that stops us all the time, so we're working against it, but we don't quite know yet, and we're working with WebF, that's an organization for producers and importers in Norway, to see ways we can do this. Responsible sales. In Norway, if you are 18, you're allowed to drink beer and wine, 20 to drink spirits. We have a system where you push the button every time you check an ID of a customer. So we know exactly how many purchases we have and how many that are actually asked for ID. So we ID check everybody over 25 years old. And we are tested by Juvente, that's a youth organization in Norway against alcohol, and they test our stores all the time. And we actually do quite well, better than the